Hello and welcome back to the very first What the Falk podcast of the 24-25 season. First and foremost, thanks very much for joining us for the beginning of our fourth season. I often can't actually believe we've made it all this far. And to be honest, I sometimes wish that we actually hadn't. But some of you demanded a podcast. So I guess we're back, I suppose, in a way. We're in the midst of pre-season as we speak. The lads have played South Shields, Gateshead, Nottingham Forest, Eldense, I think is the correct pronunciation, and Blackpool signed a couple of players, or three players, and crucially released some really good football shirts and merchandise. So we do have stuff to speak about, and joining me, as always, is some familiar faces, although we are going to be having a new face in a couple of podcast time, if not the next podcast. But first and foremost, Brad Sharp, it's warm where you are, mate. How are you doing? Are you all right?
Yeah, mate, good. It's just nice that towards the back end of July, someone's decided to finally make an appearance. So it's put me in a relatively good mood, if I'm honest. But yeah, all good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, mate. I'm not too bad. Quite chilled. I sort of forgot that I did a podcast after England got knocked out against Spain. I was like, oh no, got to do that thing again. But yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. I'm feeling very well. Thanks for asking. Dave, Lawrence, how are you? You okay?
Yeah, not bad at all, thanks, mate. Yeah, very similar to you. Not sure how much I'm looking forward to it, but it's nice to be back with the lads and nice to be having a bit of chat. We've always got hope. That's what we've always got.
Hope it's a prison, Dave. What have you been up to? Out much? Or because I know, like, we really enjoyed the Euros podcast, but I know not everyone would have listened to it. And I said that we'd only really do a review show if we'd won, and we didn't win, which is a shame. So, yeah, what have you been up to? Out much, or just kind of ploughing on?
Nah, ploughing on, but obviously pre-season training with the team that I manage. So yeah, and we've introduced a second team. So we got some bits and pieces of work to do there. Restaurant or pub is fairly busy as well. Not enough staff, not enough money, all the usual shit. So yeah, glad to have this back for a bit of release.
I was going to say, you're full of joy to spring today, Dave. Hopefully Lee can lift us up a little bit. How are you doing, Dave? Well, I am very sad. Lee, are you feeling better, mate? How are you, and what have you been up to since the Euros podcast that we did?
I'm all right, mate. Nothing much. Just ploughing on with life, getting ready for me fortnight off. Just ready to recharge the batteries and chill out. Just, I'm always all right, mate, man. I'm not depressed like Dave, unfortunately.
You sound sad, don't you?
I know.
We're going to have to have an intervention, lads and lasses. I'm really sorry about the podcast. I'm eating toast, by the way, and I'm going to have an intervention with Dave about his sadness. But we'll do the podcast first because you have been asking for it. But Brad, I'll come to you first. Pre-season started. We're kind of quite a few weeks into it, really. I think at the time of speaking, we've won 3 and drawn 2 of the pre-season games. And I think probably most importantly, the results aren't that important. It's more likely what we've seen from Reggie Lebris after the few games that we've had. Obviously, it's way too early to judge him because we haven't even played a competitive game. But what have you enjoyed or not enjoyed about what you've seen so far from Reggie Lebris?
Well, it's hard to tell on pre-season, isn't it? But
yes,
I did quite enjoy the Forest game, if I'm honest with you. And I liked a lot of the out of possession stuff. Yeah, I know Forest had a lot of good chances, but on the whole, I thought that was a really, really good test, and we stood up to them. Really, they're not a bad side in all fairness. And I think the Blackpool one yesterday, there was bits of that game where you could see they have been trying to change on how we go on the attack. I think Patrick Roberts looks a lot better than he did basically for the whole of last season. He looks more back to how we remembered him than previous times. But I've been quite impressed with Mayenda, and I know he's only one. Look, I'm not saying I want to pin all of my hopes on the season for him, but it seems like Lebris is persisting with him as part of his, you'd say, probably his first 13, 14 players. And I think it could be a good season for him, providing we get this other striker in who can complement him and allow him to develop at his own pace. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it, and I've took more note of the out of possession stuff because obviously I think it was Lebris's first interview. He was saying about how he likes to set up when we're defending as like a 4-4-2. He likes to change the shape, and it's been interesting to see it. But yeah, I'm just getting a bit of the buzz now, isn't it? It's less than 2 weeks to go, and I have enjoyed it. And look, I think you touched on it that Tuesday night's going to be a change team again. He tried to say it's going to be his second team without saying it's his second team, but he actually did say it. Bless him. And then it's Marseille next week, and I think that's where you really want to see where you're at going into the season. But look, Jack Clark scored 3 goals in pre-season. We need to keep hold of him, and I do think we will. Not just because he's a great player, but I love his new turkey teeth.
I mean, he looks like George Michael with his haircut as well. Like 80s George Michael, not like 90s George Michael when it was short. But Lee, look, it's really hard to judge. And like, I think you can lose every preseason game 7-0 and win them all 7-0 and then go in your first game and it looks not like what you've seen in preseason. I think we all know that both sides in preseason won't go full throttle for obvious reasons. And there's like things you would maybe try in a pre-season friendly that you wouldn't try in a competitive game. You're still trying and testing out players. And, I think we'll come on to the signings, but obviously I don't think our team is anywhere near complete what it would be by the end of August, sort of start of September. But we can only judge on what we've seen, and we're unbeaten so far. We've played some teams you'd expect us to beat. By the way, I said we were unbeaten. We got beat off Gateshead. I tell a lie. We did get beat, but like, who cares about stats? Like, that's not what we're here for. But we've got to draw against Forest, Premier League team. Look, you can't make much of it, but from what you have seen, what have you made of it? Because it's definitely going to be something different, isn't it, with Regis Lebris compared to the Dodds era? God, please let it be different.
Yeah, what I have seen, I've been impressed a little bit. I think even though the kids only just turned 17, Chris Riggs just showing how important player he's going to be. And like the games he's played, he looks a class above him. Even when he played against Forest, like as you say, a Premier League team, he looked a class above. It's nice, just to echo what Brad says, it's nice to see Patrick Roberts back to his sharp best. He's looked a hell of a lot better than what he did last season. And I like how he's identified the players that he knows that aren't going to be good enough. Like on Saturday, like making Dewey, Hamia and Matete go and play for the 21s instead of the first team. And he's already identified like he's not in his plans, and he's trying to fit. Like, he's now saying like, look, it's time to focus on 18, 19, what's going to be in your Cardiff squad, really.
What a shame for Hamia, though. You wait ages for him to do anything. He scores a thunder bastard, and then suddenly the guy goes, nah, probably not. I hope he proves us wrong, but I do agree with you a bit. I feel like maybe because he's only spoke English for 2 years, maybe a lot of his stuff will come across a bit more blunt, a bit more aloof. I personally think there's players in that squad, based on what you've just said there, that maybe at least won't be starting the season. I don't think.
Yeah, mate. I know you say he's going to play on Tuesday, but I can't really see Elliot Embleton playing any part at the beginning of the season. I'll be surprised if he's away as well. And I'll not be surprised to see a few of the fringe players move on and we bring in different players like a Pembele. I think I won't be surprised if he moved on as well. I think he alluded to it that he's obviously going to be part of his second string team. But I think I won't be surprised if the club's on the lookout for a better second choice right back to play under Trey Hume. That's if Trey Hume's here at the end of August. I hope he is. But another one that stuck out for me, I think they've kind of confirmed that Dan Ingle's going to be our number 6. Like out in that midfield 3, he's going to be sitting as the number 6. And I think it was James Copley that said yesterday he just looked like a total Rolls Royce of a football yesterday against Blackpool, and he just looked a class above. So you can see things that he's going to implement, and I'm intrigued and excited for the beginning of the season in a fortnight's time.
Yeah, I am actually as well, and I think anyone who spoke to me like one-to-one, I was fully concentrated on the Euros. Obviously, I'm a very big England fan, and looking back at the Sunderland stuff, I was kind of like, I just want to put that to the back of my mind for the minute. Like, I love Sunderland obviously, but I wanted to put it to the back of my mind, and I don't know, with the way the manager stuff dragged on and the kind of players I felt we needed, I wasn't entirely sure I was that excited for it, but I'm starting to get that bit of a buzz now. And, I think some of that's down to the fact that I'm quite confident about the appointment of Lebris. I know we've said we think that we weren't 100% sure if he was the first choice. We'll never really know. It doesn't really matter. He's here. He speaks quite well. I think he might fit into what we want to do, and we'll get on with the signings. I'm pleased that not everyone's 12-year-old going into this year, but I think, when we look at the appointment that was made through everyone's WhatsApp group, it was a case of, right, let's Google, let's see what this guy's about. What's he done? Oh no, he's been relegated. Oh no, hang on, he was wanted by Leeds. We didn't really know a great deal. We've managed to see a couple of interviews, Dave, and I know you can't, you can't decide too much at the moment. But what have you made of the sort of early impression of Labrie? Because I feel like you can connect to a manager quite early, and I've quite enjoyed listening to him speak. I think he's relatively interesting. Being more to come in the weeks and days and the matches that come ahead. But what have you made of him so far?
Yeah, this is probably the bit where everyone hits unsubscribe and pauses and fast forwards me out the way, because
we've been telling him to do that for ages, Dave. We've been telling him to do that for absolutely ages. So if you can't make them do that
now, I think he speaks very well. I think he's got a clear and concise plan. I do like how confident he seems in his own ability. I don't want to bring the whole podcast down. I think this is the hierarchy's way of showing how our season's going to go. I think all their eggs are in his basket. I don't mind the Brown signing, which I'm sure you'll get onto in a bit. I think he's an absolutely competent player for the level. But I genuinely feel as though we're all going to be a little bit disappointed with lackluster signings again, and everything is in Reggie's armory, basically. And I hope he can play a style of football which blows everyone away, and it's exciting and it's optimistic. That's not what my gut tells me, and as we all know, I've got quite a big sized gut, so it's quite a strong feeling. but yeah, fingers crossed. I do like how he talks, and I'm impressed with him. So fingers crossed it goes our way.
Yeah, I think you're kind of borderline pleased that he's not Mike Dodd, but still dealing with the Mike Dodd situation. And he's rubbing his belly like a genie to see if Reggie Lebris is going to be the man he wants him to be as we speak. This is why we don't do a video podcast. Brad, I think me and you tend to disagree more than anyone on this podcast, probably in private and obviously on the podcast as well. But I think one thing we have agreed with is the signings have been good so far. We need more. We'll get on to that. But Alan Brown, the second Alan Brown to play for Sunderland, funnily enough, Simon Moore, Ian Poveda, Brilliant. Might as well call him Keith. Chris Riggs signed a brand new contract, and Dan Ballard has as well. That's good. I think, what are your thoughts on all three signings, and how important is it that we've tied down Chris Rigg and Dan Ballard for the foreseeable?
Yeah, I think it's really good that we've, first of all, tied them two down, because there was a lot of talk about Ballard leaving, wasn't there? Or people are going to come in. So if they're going to come in and want him now, they're going to have to pay more money. So it's excellent. But the way he speaks when he gets interviewed after signing a new deal, because I think, is that his second time he signed a new deal since he signed for us? He loves the place, and he loves playing for the club, and he's got the same ambitions as the club and understands things take time, and he wants to grow with us. So if someone came in, I can't see his head being turned unless it was stupid money either, to be honest with you. No, it's massive. And obviously Chris Rigg signed his first pro deal off the back of all that speculation. He could have been at any of the big clubs. Look, we are a big club, but you know what I mean, the big Premier League sides. It's a testament to the recruitment strategy, the recruitment policy, and how the club are giving youngsters a chance now. So yeah, that's really exciting. And once again, we've protected ourselves. If you want to speak highly of the model, that's exactly what you want. You want to tie down your best prospects, and if they are going to leave, you're going to get a good fee. So, no, that's brilliant. It's not Ian, actually; it's Jan Poveda.
Oh, is it?
It's spelled Ian. It's basically when commentators used to say Simon Mignolet was Simon. No, it's Simon. Yeah, it's Jan Poveda, but he excites me. I mean, you look at his academies, he was at Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City, Barcelona. It depends which side you look at it. Is there a reason why he hasn't managed to stay at a specific place? Is there an attitude problem there? Is there something missing? But then you also look and think, well, other clubs have straight away snapped him up through his youth years. Chef Weds, look, he only played 10, 12 games for them, but by all accounts, when he did play, he was their man, the main man. So I'm looking forward to that one. That could also be the catalyst to give Roberts the kick up the arse when we get into the season, when it actually matters. That, look, if you're not performing, there is a man there that's more than capable of taking your place. Plus, he's got an absolutely excellent song, which I absolutely loved when Dave put it in the group earlier. And my cousin took his little one down and had to explain to him what they were singing about. So yeah, it's a great song. I'm looking forward to having the talk with Archie about that one as well. And Brown, what can you say? It's, I mean, 10 years at one club. There's obviously loyalty there. I think Sheffield United wanted him. Preston were more than keen to wanting to keep him. Got their Player of the Year last year. He was their captain. We talk about experience, but what was it, 450 games? Preston are always there or thereabouts in the top 10, you would say, over the last 6-7 years. And he's been in their centre of midfield for that entire time. Probably just the signing that we needed. So there's a lot of credit got to go to the recruitment team. But what is also interesting, I know that we like to bash Speakman on here. Each of the people that were interviewed on the extended interviews, they've mentioned Stuart Harvey, especially Paveda, saying how much Stuart Harvey was a key factor for him, makes him feel wanted. So yeah, kudos to Stuart Harvey, because I do think he doesn't get the respect he deserves, I would say, because when we do make these good signings, everyone's saying, "Oh, Speakman's pulled out the bag." Well, no. Yes, he has. He's got it over the line. Credit to him. And I was always a big Speakman defender for years. You know that. But a lot of credit's got to go to Stuart Harvey, because he's plucking these players out of nowhere, or sometimes players that we wouldn't even think about going for, and he's getting the deals done. So yeah, kudos to him as well.
I think you look at Stuart Harvey and stuff like that, though. He probably feels quite lucky that he doesn't get the credit when he makes good ones, because he gets knee shite when he signs the bad ones, and there's been a few of them and all. But I do agree on the signings. I think I'm only going to discuss the signings that we've made so far and the contract renewals, because I don't think there's areas we need extra stuff. I think it's glaringly obvious where we need something, but like, we'll know where we're at come the end of August. And as long as we get, there or thereabouts what we need, which if you read, rumours, newspapers and all that kind of stuff, it looks like we're definitely looking at centre forwards and whatnot. I do think there'll be more players that come in, but I'm quite happy with the signings we've made. I think Moore is the signing we should have always had long before we signed the likes of Bishop and Bass. Look, he's not going to play very often, is he? Pato's going to be the number one, but you've got a player in there that, if Pato gets a bad injury, if Pato falls completely out of form and is just becoming a liability, or anything that could happen in a long old season, especially in the Championship, you've got a really experienced goalkeeper that comes in there. And the worst case scenario is he doesn't play a game all season and sits on the bench all year, but is a really good person in the dressing room to rely on. I think it's a total no-brainer, and I think he's a massive upgrade on Bishop, who, look, didn't look great when I seen him, and I don't think he would add anywhere near as much as what Moore does in the dressing room. Not to say he's a bad lad, just there's a difference in age there and a difference in experience. On top of that, I think you're looking at Alan Brown makes total sense. Like, I lose count of how many times we not only discussed the striker situation, but we discussed that fact that we needed a good, defensive midfielder that had plenty of experience. I don't think there's many out there on a free transfer that tick the boxes more than Alan Brown. Republic of Ireland international as well, so he's got experience above that level. And I think Paveda's worth it. I don't think he's going to be on absolutely shed loads, so it's not like you're shelling out for this sort of player that might be decent, that used to be at Barca and Chelsea and whatnot. But I think the biggest thing for me is, I've always been a big fan of Bielsa, and he played with Leeds while Bielsa was there. So if Bielsa rates you, I think there's something there. And I think it's fair to say Bielsa doesn't tolerate necessarily bad attitudes from what you can see. So I do feel like Paveda could be a really good addition. That, again, on top of that, I think there's caveats to Patrick Roberts' season. I do feel like people forgot he had quite a fair few injuries and tried to bounce back straight away, and we expect him to be the immediate Patrick Roberts. But I think regardless of whether you think Patrick Roberts was the worst player in the world on the planet last season, or you have my opinion, Roberts does need to have a better season this season that produces more assists and more goals, and gets more back to what he was like in our first season in the Championship, which I'm fully confident he can. But if not, you're not now going, well, you've got Abdullah Bar that can come in. You've got like a Pervader there who, I think if you look at Leeds fans and Chef Wed fans and what they've said, they both seem to be like, I quite like the fact that Chef Wed fans, some of them were like, oh, he's always injured. And other fans were like, come on, you wanted him. Like, stop trying to like pad it out as if it's not a bad thing that he's gone elsewhere. We wanted him to stay. So I think it's positive. He seems to have positive or glowing recommendations from other fan bases with room to grow. And, again, worst case scenario, Patrick Roberts plays brilliant, you can't get in the team, then I'm fine with that. That's absolutely okay. And there was a worry at first that I thought, oh no, is he the Jack Clark replacement? But I think he's very much a right-sided player in the mould of a Roberts. So, that's good. And I don't think I can add anything more to Ballard and Chris Rigg. For me, Chris Rigg's a Premier League player, be it with Sunderland in the future or not. He's going to end up in the Premier League. You can just see what he's got. And again, for me, Dan Ballard, we've got a lot of good defenders. I'm a big fan of Agielesi. I like Luke O'Nien, but I think Ballard stands head and shoulders, not just literally, like as his talent, and I still feel he's got room to grow. So I think that's massive good news. Someone did ask a question. We've got some listeners' questions here. Like, I should probably bring this one up whilst we're talking about incomings and stuff like that. Lee, talking about new contracts, it would be really nice to see Dan Neil sign one, wouldn't it? Someone's asked, should we try and get Dan Neil's contract completed as well?
Yes, I would like Daniel to sign new contracts that gives us a bit of stability as well, and that eases off the speculation from potentially going. And I said it on the review show last year, I think Dan Neil's a harder player to replace than Jack Clark. And that may come across as a bit controversial for how much Jack Clark has contributed over the last 2 seasons.
I don't think so. I agree with you 100%. I think he's our most important player. I think he's our best player.
I think he's our best player. That kid can go and walk into 90% of midfield in the Premier League and he wouldn't look out of place.
Yeah, he's that good player.
He's, as I said, he's what, 23?
23, something like that.
23, 24, and he looks a class above the level he's playing at. And if he's still a Sunderland player after August 31st, new contract or not, we can count ourselves very, very, very lucky.
I mean, there's a reason Liverpool look at him. Like,
yeah,
I know we all think Sunderland's the biggest club in the world, but I know he's had his Saudi Arabian issues, but Jordan Henderson, I think you could quite clearly see that when he was at Sunderland. I know not everyone could, but I think he's proved it that he was a class above. And was a Champions League player and he ended up going to sort of win the Champions League. But I think Daniel, we've just double checked, he's actually 22 still, not 23 until December. And I think you can quite clearly see Dan Neil is what some people call a different gravy, Lee, I think, and I do agree. We did call for that central defensive midfielder, Lee. Obviously, we asked about bringing in experience, and we talked about experience in the dressing room. We've discussed what Brown and what Neil will, and what Moore will bring to the dressing room, and what in particular we think Brown will add to the team. But there's been links to Mendy from Cannes as a striker. Like, some people are saying he's gone for medical. There's other people saying that it's not quite that far on yet. That there's also takeovers happening at the moment, which is like holding the move up. There's been links to the lad from Bordeaux as well. I think it's as obvious as getting like shot in the ear. You know what I mean? That we need a striker, whether it's Mendy, whether it's someone else. How imperative is it that we had a striker, and where else do you think we need to add to before the window closes?
I think every man and his dog knows we need a centre forward. Like, you could ask any football fan around the globe, or the country even, and they go, what position do you think Sunderland need? And they'll all say a striker, because as much as my end is impressed in pre-season, he's not the immediate answer, and I think it's very harsh on the kid if he goes in as the first choice. Me personally, I wouldn't mind another centre half, just to potentially complement the ones that we've got. By the looks of it, it looks like Labrie likes Elise as a centre half. Whether that's just because he hasn't got any other options or anything like that, but it looks like he likes him as a centre half. But I would like an experienced one come in, like someone in the mode of like a John Egan, just as someone who can take the pressure off Dan Ballard and Hugo Nine has been them leaders at the back. And possibly, if we're being greedy, another centre midfielder. If we're going to let players go, I would mind another centre midfielder. Other than that, I think I said this, if this team's coached correctly and properly, I think it's a top tier championship team personally. I know we finished 16th last season, so it's a hell of a jump. But I honestly think it is for the quality of players we have. If it's coached correctly, I think we'd easily crack the top 8. So I wouldn't mind a centre half that complement the team, as well as obviously a centre forward or two.
Dave, I think I asked Lee that question maybe a little bit earlier in terms of, a little bit too early, sorry, in terms of like where you'd like to see us strengthen, because in reality, there's going to be players leaving as well. And I think Labrie has kind of alluded to that also. Looking at the squad, there's players in there that are probably, I don't want to use the word deadwood. I find that like not the nicest term, but like maybe could do the move elsewhere. And there's also question marks over, I think Jack Clark's the biggest question mark. I think on top of that, there's been rumours of Trey Hume throughout the summer. Although we're in a strong position with him because of the contract, there's been links to Pato in the past. I also believe that we're in a strong position with that one as well. And I don't understand why I'd want to go as a number 2 to like another team in the Premier League. But where do you see sort of Sunderland losing players this summer? When you're looking at the squad here, I think Clark's the obvious one out of the big name players, but on top of that, you've got the likes of Pembele, who we mentioned before. There is Embleton. I do feel Hamir. For me, I'm not too sure just yet. Mundle is a question mark because you've obviously got Roberts there, but you've brought Preveda in now as well. He then becomes a third choice sort of right winger. Barr's got to be a question mark. Jewison Benetti is 100% a question mark. Does Triantis go out on loan somewhere again? You know, you've got Yelder there as well for centre half. He wasn't that impressive. There's been rumours about Equa. There's a lot of players that still have question marks on it. Where do you think that we can afford? Well, not that we can afford to lose players, but what first and foremost, what do you think with Jack Clark? Where do you think that's going to end up? Is this something that we should probably just stop thinking about in terms of him staying? Is he definitely going to go? Or do you think he could stay? And on top of that, you know, which players can we afford to maybe trim in terms of like surplus to requirement, shall we say?
Yeah, I think my counter argument is after the amount of names that you've just rattled off there is nowhere on this earth that squad is anywhere near a top 8 championship squad. That's just my opinion.
At the moment, Dave, at the moment.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
it could be. I think
if we hadn't waited 100 and however many days to appoint a manager, we might not be scraping around the bottom of the barrel 2 weeks before kickoff. But I mean, that's a different story for a different podcast. So I won't get into it. I'm not on one. Honestly, this is just how I felt all summer.
Just for everyone listening, we are replacing Dave in the interim whilst we go through this intervention about his sadness with football. Fucking cheer up, man, you fucking baldy fucking arsehole.
I think the Clark thing, I said it quite a way back. I don't think he will go anywhere other than a foreign move. I can't see him. Like, if the Lazio thing turned up again, and I don't think they've got the money for him, if I'm honest, 20 million, 22, 18 rising to 22. I don't think they got the money. Because he's been in the Premier League before, do I think Jack Clark benefits from an Everton, he's not going to go back to Spurs, from a Nottingham Forest? I don't think he does. I don't think he gets the game time that he wants. Of course, there is potentially a fee involved with certain members of his team, which might persuade him otherwise. We won't mention who that may be. But I think the Jack Clark thing, I'm not that worried that he's going to go personally. I think he, exactly like Brad had said before about or was it you? Sorry, about Ballard. I think they enjoy playing here. And it's going to take something mega to get them to move. So I ain't worried about that. I am worried about all the we won't use Deadwood. Surplus to requirements, as Brad nicely put in the bottom of the comments. Matete, Embleton, through injury worries, Hjelde. I mean, Jesus, just look at their injury records with us, let alone previously. It is tough to think about people like Elias because he's a homegrown lad. He's been quite important in little flashes. I just don't think...
You know what? I think Embo, to be fair, impassioned defensive Embo here, I think people forget the numbers Embo put up in League One. And I know we're not in League One now, but he started putting in the numbers in the Championship. He's obviously had an absolute fucking nightmare with injuries. And for that, I think that's why Embo needs somewhere fresh. I don't think here fighting for his place behind players that he's obviously behind because of time and the way things have happened. It's how his Sunderland career should end. Like, I'd like to see him get minutes somewhere because I think technically Embo's, not one of our better midfielders, but I think Embo's got a lot technically to give. And I think if he can get his fitness back, his numbers that he was putting up both in our League One season and the sort of Championship season, the first half before he got injured, to me sort of prove he could do something. It might be at a League One club where he needs to kickstart himself a little bit. I largely agree with Matete as well. I do think Matete's got something, if I'm honest. Will it be at Sunderland? I don't think it is. But I both see them sort of moving on, if I'm completely not really honest with you. And I think it's for the goodness of their own benefit. I think they have to do that. But, on top of that, I mentioned names before. Triantis, I think definitely, for me, looked more like a midfielder when I was watching him up here at Hibs. Dave, does his sort of future change to a defensive midfielder now, and do we get more experience elsewhere in that position? Pembele just looks like a player that's never played football, let alone PSV in the kind of PSG, sorry, in the kind of outings I've seen him. He might come good, but for me, he's so far behind Trey Hume, and I include that in the games I've seen him in pre-season. Hjelde has looked okay in pre-season, to be fair to him. I didn't really think much of him prior to that, and I think you've maybe got to keep him on board because I really like Adji. I really like Dan Ballard, but Dan Ballard's obviously injured at the minute, and on top of that, Adji's not had the best record when it comes to playing at the back, and currently we have Jensen Seal out as well, which maybe goes back to what Lee said before about getting someone in experienced, cheap, free that can complement that whilst we work out what we're doing at the back. But there's a lot of players there that I think have question marks over, and I do sometimes wonder if that's what's maybe... I wouldn't say our transfer business is slow, but I'm assuming they'd prefer to have maybe 5 in as opposed to 3 at the moment. But that's not being negative. I think naturally they'd want a few more numbers in there. But I've got the most important question for all years. We've got like about 4 minutes here or so, and I'll stick with you, Dave, on this one. I think, talk about teams and players coming in, players coming out, what we think of the manager and X, Y, and Z. But I think the most important thing that's happened during the summer has been the Hummel release, which has been absolutely excellent and means that anything bad that previously I felt has been wiped out by 2 really, really smart shirts, which make everyone that supports Sunderland and wears the shirt look incredibly, incredibly handsome and gorgeous. But Dave, what Hummel stuff have you bought? That's the most important part of this entire podcast, I think.
Are you trying to set me up to say that I couldn't get me basket loaded up properly on the internet? Because at the minute I'm sitting at 0, and yeah, so I was going to get the little, and she always loves a new top every year, so I'll wait till everything chills out a little bit and we'll probably buy her the home and away, bless her, because she loves it, but nothing personally as of yet. But right. There is always the backup website in there.
SFC.com, SFC store, yes. I managed to get the home and away, which I'm chuffed with, and I got a couple of tracky tops, and I managed to get the Hummel 1992 one back in May, so I'm chuffed. I'm buzzing with that. And look, I do think, Brad, I'll bring this on to you. We discussed last pre-season how annoyed we were with the club shop and all that kind of stuff. We are going to give credit where credit's due. I know you'll agree with me on this again, which is weird. The world might implode. We're agreeing once more, Brad, but they've absolutely smashed it with the kits and that, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. And that's where, like we said, we will give them a lot of credit. But for me, there's the little one shouting for me to go back in. But for me, it's such basic things that they're getting right now that should have been done donkeys ago.
Mm.
We're giving them plaudits for stuff which is like League Two clubs get right. So yes, credit where it's due. It has to start somewhere. But look, it's credit to David Bruce for me. He's came in and he's done what he's been brought in for, and it's a start. But there needs to be more. The customer service side needs to be better still. Fan engagement still needs to be a lot better. But yeah, it's a good start. And look, the kits are absolutely outstanding. I've got the home. Little ones have got the full strips. Got a jacket. I put upsized for the away top because the home ones, it looks like it's painted on, shall I say. So I ordered Archie's next size up, which is obviously had to go into small man's, extra money. Then I put mine in the basket. By the time I went to check out, it only checked out Archie's. Mine had sold out, so he'll get the away one. Hopefully I'll get it in the next drop. But look, that's all we've been asking for. I've been away this week, and all I've seen is people in Sunderland kits.
Yeah.
And that's all we've asked for. I mean, what did they say? They sold 25,000.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in previous years where we were begging them to take our money and we couldn't physically give them it. But now they have that. And it's like, how simple was that to do? But yeah, credit to them. And I'm looking forward to seeing the stadium kitted out when we go back and everyone in the Hummel gear.
Yeah,
no more net.
I think they've done very well with it. I've been as critical as anyone about the stuff that's happened in the past, but I think that can't change now. It's happened. I'm not going to change my stripes, for want of a better phrase. So I think they've absolutely smashed it, and I've been excited, and I'm coming up 38. I shouldn't be getting excited about a shirt, and I have been. And I've gone out and spent loads of money and cornered the life out of the training stuff. But I said we'd go back to listeners' questions, but to be honest, we brought most of them up with that. I think there's still so much of pre-season to go. I think, we can all see what we need is in terms of signings. We'd all like Daniel to sign a contract. We all really like the Hummel stuff. And we are very happy with the signings, apart from Dave, who's unhappy with everything. But there's been a really good question that I'm going to end up with, but change it a little bit. We've all seen how like the NBA and like NFL work, and they'll do like a one game a year somewhere else. Like NBA plays a game in Paris at the minute. I think the NFL is doing a game in London at Wembley at the moment, and Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and things like that. And somebody asked, would you be up for it if some of our games were played overseas if the club paid for all of our expenses? They'd be open-minded to it as long as it's warm places with a beach. So I'm not going to ask if you'd be comfortable playing the games overseas, because no, I wouldn't necessarily be at all, because I think Sunderland games get played in Sunderland. However, if we were to go all Americanized, and it did happen, there would be a place you'd have to pick to go and play. Dave, where would be the place you would pick if Sunderland had like an exhibition style league game against, like, let's think, Luton Town? Where would your exhibition match take place?
Oh, I love a thought-provoking question. Fantastic. Where would I see it? I'll tell you where I'm gonna, especially sticking on with the theme of a nice beach and stuff like that.
Bearing in mind, though, this is all expenses paid. So if you've got one place you've always wanted to go to, you could also choose that.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going South America.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot decide for the life of me if I'm going Brazil or if I'm going Mexico. I reckon I'm going to say the Maracana. I absolutely love a game.
Good song, that.
Yeah, fantastic. Especially if you can get a load of them in there as well, doing the dance. Be fantastic.
Luton 9 knows the moves. We've seen that.
I bet he does. He tries to act them out every week, the idiot. Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, definitely South America anyway. I don't know where I'd be, but I think somewhere like Brazil or Mexico, Argentina, they're all mental as well. So if you've got us lot over there, plus a mixture of some of them, let's be honest, Maradona nearly signed for Sunderland. So
Well,
there's every chance that the Argentinians are going to love us.
the Nicolas Medina Cup against whoever Nicolas Medina played for, Argentinos Juniors, was it?
So, if I pulled this out, no, Estudiantes, did he?
Was it that?
Tell you what, I'm going to Google that now while Lee answers.
Lee, I've got a nice answer, but I've also got like a heartfelt answer that'll leave us on a nice note. Since we've been away for a few months with Sunderland. Where do you choose, Lee? Bearing in mind again, all expenses paid. You can go wherever you want.
But if it's going to be all expenses paid, I can't tell you can get me teeth in the head on if they're going to pay for that now.
I can't believe no one said the moon, by the way.
It's too far away, that, man.
But it'd be good, though, if you're getting all expenses paid trip to the moon. I mean, the football would be awful. It would all be in the air, wouldn't it? But
it'd be like 06 Salmon. I'd like to
plus we're all like Stefan. We're all like Stefan Schwartz. It's in our contract. We're not allowed to gan.
Yeah.
And I'd probably agree with Dave. I wouldn't mind like a South American theme, whether it be Brazil, Mexico, or Argentina, because there are nuts. And I would love to say like Sunderland fans pack out their stadiums, actually let a flare off, and you'd be allowed to let a flare off instead of getting escorted out the stadium. So I'd go South America as well. Probably it's a bit boring because I'm going the same answer as Dave, but aye.
Since it's such a hypothetical question, I'll give you like the answer that is realistic. Because we have played in Hong Kong before, pre-season. So we have played in Asia. Mine for me would be Tokyo. It's like the one place I've always wanted to visit. Had it all booked and stuff like that. And then the pandemic hit and killed it, completely destroyed it, in fact, because Japan was one of the last places to open up and I got really bored and then decided to change it to New York instead. Idiot from my perspective, but nonetheless, I think mine would be Tokyo. And I think, it makes sense. We've got the Netflix documentary. You could maybe get new fans in Asia, that side of the world. We have a North Korean branch, apparently. But if I'm going to give you the heartfelt answer, which is kind of physically impossible, I was watching back like the first games I went to, because I think it's Sunderland AFC TV, not SAFC Fan TV, Sunderland AFC TV on YouTube has uploaded like all of the old previous games from like Tyne Tees television and stuff like that you used to get. Like Spurs in the Cup when Klinsmann got beat 4-1, Gary Bennett got sent off for making a save on the line, all those sort of games. And I was watching it back and like without getting too dramatic and stuff like that, there'll be some fans listening to this who don't understand it because they weren't born at that point. There'll be some that definitely do. It didn't really dawn on me how much I absolutely loved Roker Park as a kid and that nothing's really compared to it since. I know a lot of people who weren't old enough to go Roker Park. And look, I didn't go to loads. Like my first game, I was like 4. I don't remember much. I remember the games from about 6 or 7 till I was 11. And then the beautiful old thing got knocked down. But that was like my first memories of football. Chris Waddle's free kick against Everton, obviously the last league game. I remember getting beat, I think it was the 93-94 season at home off Leicester 3-2. Just games like that, Millwall 6-0, and I've been watching them back on this YouTube channel and just sort of reminiscing and stuff like that about the Hummel kits and the AVEC kits and my really young period. So if I could really go back and play a pre-season not a pre-season, like a glamour game anywhere, it would be to build Roker Park back up for just one last time and just go basically a little bit further away from the stadium light, go past the programme shop, go past Mackie D's, the retail park, and just spend one more game in Roker Park. But of course, that's a total waste of time. If they did it for just one game, you might as well just build it back up completely. And it's not going to happen. But I thought I'd leave us on a nice romantic note so people can feel happy and positive about the new season. Because I think, apart from Dave, we're all feeling a little bit more positive than we were. But lads, thanks for joining me in my romantic hypothetical Tokyo/Roker Park love admission. I don't know what you'd call it.
Absolute pleasure, mate. And seems how we're talking about romantic scenarios. You never know. There's still a chance we might get Zlatan out of retirement.
Why am I looking at Zlatan Ibrahimovic on the bottom of this list?
I guarantee you he's still there. Guarantee it.
Talking
What does-
hypotheticals, Jan Collar at Roker Park, that would be what you'd everyone want to see, wouldn't it? Oh, he's interesting Stadium Light days, to be fair.
Collaring and Bomber up top. I'd take it. They'd be all right, them two on the moon, wouldn't they? And Bomber and Collar, if the ball's up in the air. Descended into mayhem.
Oh, editing again.
Well, I didn't edit that. It makes me sound happy for the first time on podcast.